Yemeni Crisis, 2011 to 2018, History. Revolution, 2011-12. Yemen's political crisis began in 2011, amid the Arab Spring and the ongoing Houthi insurgency. Protests against Saleh. Popular protests broke out in early 2011, led by both secular and Islamist opposition groups. Longtime rebel groups like the Houthis and the Southern Movement also participated in the protests. Saleh responded with a violent crackdown, and the country nearly disintegrated into an all-out civil war as several army elements broke with the government and joined the protesters, beginning in March. Saleh was almost killed when a bomb went off in a mosque where he and other top government officials were praying on 3 June, apparently in an assassination attempt. While his condition initially appeared grave, Saleh recovered and returned to work on 23 September after several months of medical treatment in Saudi Arabia. He left Vice President Hadi in charge during his absence. As acting president, Hadi met with the opposition and reportedly expressed openness to political reforms. However, he rejected the idea of forcing Saleh from power without the president's consent. Deal brokered. The Gulf Cooperation Council applied no small amount of pressure on Saleh to negotiate an end to the uprising by stepping down. Weeks after returning from Saudi Arabia, Saleh finally agreed on 23 November to resign in exchange for immunity. As part of the deal, the opposition agreed to allow Hadi to stand unopposed for the presidency in 2012. Siege of Dammaj. Meanwhile, the insurgent Houthis in northern Yemen laid siege to a Salafi town in Sada Governorate, Dammaj. Fighting was worst in November and December. The Yemeni military was unable to restore order due to the crisis elsewhere in the country. Transitional period, 2012-14. The Yemeni revolution came to an apparently successful conclusion in 2012 for the opposition, as Saleh left office. However, unrest continued in both northern and southern Yemen. Election of Hadi. Hadi's election on February 24, 2012 peacefully introduced a new government in Yemen, with only a small percentage of voters spoiling their ballots in the single-candidate contest. Hadi, a southerner, especially enjoyed support in former South Yemen, quieting the murmurs of separatism, although the Southern Movement boycotted the presidential election, as did the Houthis. Hadi did not give the rest of Houthis any seats in his cabinet. Dammaj clashes continue. The conflict in Dammaj was renewed in April when fighting broke out between Houthi tribesmen and Salafi students. Both sides accused the other of breaking a truce agreement. Hadi makes inroads. National reconciliation talks were held with the participation of many separatist elements, as well as the Houthis. 9 years after the death of Hussein Badreddin al-Houthi, the Yemeni government turned over the remains of the Houthi patriarch to his family and he was buried in northern Yemen in June 2013, with a representative of the Hadi administration in attendance. Hadi visited the United States, a key overseas ally, in July 2013. The U.S. also lifted a ban on transferring detainees from its Guantanamo Bay detention camp in Cuba to Yemen. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia deported as many as 300,000 to 400,000 Yemeni migrant workers to their home country during 2013, causing an influx of poor, landless Yemenis into northern Yemen. Renewed clashes. The conflict between Houthis and Salafis in Sada Governorate was renewed in October and November. Sada government officials accused Houthi fighters of attacking a Salafi mosque in Dammaj in an attempt to drive the Sunnis out, while the Houthis accused the Salafis of using the religious institute as a staging ground for foreign Sunni fighters. The government attempted to intervene to stop the fighting. Sectarian fighting in Al-Jaf Governorate lasted throughout the year. Dammaj Governorate also saw clashes between the Houthis and Salafis toward the end of the year. Houthi Rebellion, 2014-15. In a dramatic turn of events, the rebel Houthis took broad control of northern Yemen, including the capital of Sana'a itself, in 2014. Shia-Sunni conflict spreads. Clashes in Dammaj spread to the Umran Governorate by January 2014. The Houthis achieved victory in Sa'da when the Yemeni government brokered a deal under which Salafi fighters and their families were evacuated to the neighboring al-Hudaida governorate. According to reports, the Houthis then blocked government troops from fully deploying throughout the territory, in spite of a signed agreement. Fighting in the Omran governorate intensified during the year, with clashes between Houthis and supporters of the Islamist Islah party eventually leading to a Houthi takeover of the entire governorate. The conflict spread to the Sana'a governorate by July. Houthis take Sana'a. The Houthis began protesting against Hadi's government to demand concessions in order to resolve a years-long insurgency they had been waging against the Yemeni state in mid-2014. The uprising escalated dramatically as Houthi fighters swept into Sana'a, the capital, and effectively seized control of the city from the Yemeni military within a couple of days in September. The forces of General Ali Mohsen al-Amer surrendered to the Houthis after a brief fight. Ali Abdullah Saleh, the former president, was widely suspected of aiding the Houthis behind the scenes and helping pave the way for their takeover. Prime Minister Mohammed Baysandawa resigned on 21 September as part of a deal meant to end the standoff. Unity government formed. The Houthis and the government agreed on 21 September to form a unity government within 1 month. However, the Houthis rejected Hadi's original choice of Prime Minister, Ahmad Awad bin Mubarak, and Oil Minister Khalid Baha was appointed instead with the armed group's approval. The Houthis and the General People's Congress led by Saleh announced abruptly on 8 November that they would not participate in the unity government, claiming it was unacceptable to them. The boycott prompted sanctions against Saleh and senior Houthi leaders from the United Nations Security Council and the United States Department of the Treasury. War in Yemen, 2015 to 2018. Yemen was riven in 2015, with the Houthis establishing a new government in Sana'a and Hadi retreating with his supporters to Aden, and later Saudi Arabia. The Arab League, led by the Saudis, began a bombing campaign and mobilization of various armed forces in the region for a possible invasion. Houthis consolidate power. The Houthis stepped up their pressure on Hadi's weakened government, seizing the presidential palace and strategic military installations in Sana'a and shelling the president's private residence on 20 January. The following day, they took control of Hadi's home, stationing armed guards outside to keep him under virtual house arrest. Hadi, Prime Minister Khalid Baha, and the cabinet resigned the following day, saying they could not continue to work under the conditions the Houthis had imposed. The rebel group welcomed Hadi's resignation, but continued to keep him under house arrest. The news prompted 4 southern governorates to announce they would disregard all orders from Sana'a. The House of Representatives was to meet on 25 January to discuss whether to accept or reject Hadi's resignation under the Yemeni constitution, but the session was cancelled after the Houthis took control of the parliament building. The United Nations stepped in to attempt a negotiated resolution to what many in Yemen regarded as a Houthi coup. UN negotiations were fruitless, and a Houthi ultimatum to Yemen's political factions to find a solution was not met. On 6 February, the Houthis declared themselves in total control of the Yemeni government, dissolving parliament and installing a revolutionary committee led by Muhammad Ali al-Houthi to lead the state in an interim capacity. The announcement sparked protests in Sana'a and other cities, especially in the south. Post-coup developments. Reactions to the Houthi takeover were broadly negative, with the Arab League, Gulf Cooperation Council, United Nations, and United States refusing to recognize the constitutional declaration and several governorates rejecting the Houthis' authority. With most political parties criticizing the coup, Jamal bin Omar, the UN envoy to Yemen, announced a resumption of national talks over the future of Yemen on 8 February. Bin Omar said the Houthis had agreed to participate in the talks. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon called for Hadi to be reinstated as president. The Houthis and other factions reached a tentative agreement, announced on 20 February, to keep the House of Representatives in place despite the constitutional declaration dissolving it 2 weeks prior. The agreement also stipulated that a People's Transitional Council would be established to represent Southerners, women, youth, and other political minorities. The next day, Hadi traveled to Aden, where he said all Houthi-directed actions since September 21, 2014 were invalid, and condemned the coup d'état. Civil war erupts. Fighting broke out over Aden International Airport on 19 March, with special forces loyal to ex-President Ali Abdullah Saleh attempting to seize the airport before they were defeated by troops and militiamen under orders from the Hadi administration. The following day, in an apparently unrelated incident, 4 suicide bombers detonated themselves in Sana'a mosques packed with Houthi congregants, killing at least 142. The Sunni Islamist group Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant's Yemen branch claimed responsibility. Hadi declared Aden to be Yemen's temporary capital on 21 March while Sana'a remains under Houthi control. The next day, Houthi forces advanced toward Aden, capturing key parts of Yemen's third city of Taiz. They consolidated their grip on much of the south and seized much of Aden itself by early April. Saudi Arabian-led intervention in Yemen equals. On 26 March, Saudi Arabia and several other countries announced that they had begun military operations in Yemen against Houthi rebels. Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates issued a statement along with Saudi Arabia saying their goal is to repel Houthi aggression in Yemen. Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Sudan are also members of the coalition. In addition to airstrikes against targets throughout Yemen, which the General People's Congress blamed for causing dozens of civilian casualties, Egyptian warships reportedly shelled the Houthi column as it advanced toward Aden on 30 March, and Saudi and Houthi forces traded artillery and rocket fire across the border between Saudi Arabia and Yemen. The October 8, 2016 attack by the Saudi Arabian-led coalition killed at least 140 people and injured more than 600 in Sana'a. This was one of the single worst death tolls in the 2-year war. Saudi Arabia and its allies accepted the internal review's finding, by the Joint Incidents Assessment Team, JIAT, that the coalition's bombardment of this funeral ceremony was based on faulty information, i.e., that this was a gathering of armed Houthi leaders. Cholera epidemic.